How did you make the move from a hobbyist into making that your living?
The hardest thing was getting enough money to actually have this as a hobby. I mean, if I was lucky, I got a quarter a week allowance when they could afford to give me that. It takes a lot of those to get $8 worth of rubber, you know. And so I'd try to mow lawns and do all those kind of things, and went to every place within walking distance, you know, to taco stands and you know, supermarkets and restaurants, and nobody really wanted to give me a job. And my dad, when like I said, he was a truck driver at one point, delivering plumbing supplies, accidentally went into this wrong building, which was this place called Clokey Productions, where they made Gumby and Davy and Goliath. And he says, you know, maybe, you know, there's that place there, you can maybe try that. You know, that would be really cool, you know. So I went there with a box of, you know, things that I'd made, and I said, start tomorrow. And so that was my first, like, you know, first credit even. I got a credit on on Davy and Goliath.
Wow.
And,
which was a Christian inspirational group of stop motion stories for kids.
Yes. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times I heard Goliath saying, "God is everywhere, Davy." You know, it's like forward and backwards all day long, you know. But, it was like a summer job, you know, in between my junior and senior year, I think.
Did you basically sculpt the models, or did you actually do the stop motion too?
I made models. I sculpted bodies and made molds and ran foam rubber and, you know, cast Goliaths and painted them and made some Gumbies and all kinds of stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, there I met other, you know, people that liked the same stuff that I liked. I met Doug Beswick, who was a stop motion animator there at Clokey's, and he read Famous Monsters, you know, he knew the same movies, and he knew other kids that liked the same stuff. And it was like Dennis Muren, Ken Ralston, David Allen, Jim Danforth, Phil Tippett, you know, I mean, all these guys that are all have like a bunch of Oscars now and basically changed the industry. And we were all these geeky kids who like monster movies and thought it would be really cool to work on a movie someday, you know.
And going into movies, what was the first feature film you did?
It was a not very good film called The Octaman, about an octopus man. And it originally was going to be a stop motion thing. And then they decided stop motion wasn't the way to do it. It could be a guy in a suit. And then it kind of became, you think you want to do this job, you know. I was a full-time student in my second year at a community college. And it's like, yeah, sure, you know, and it was, you know, like, I think we had 6 weeks if we had that much, and $1,000 to make this full octopus character. And my workshop at the time was my bedroom, you know, and Doug Beswick had a little bitty workshop nearby, and I asked Doug if we could do this together and do it in his shop, so we partnered up on that and figured out a way to make this rubber suit for this crappy movie, you know, for very little money and very little time, you know.
Well, what was next? Thing with Two Heads?
No, I don't think it was Thing with Two Heads. I did Schlock next, I think.
Oh, Schlock was next,
Yeah.
which started a great relationship with John Landis.
Yeah.
Had you been friends before?
Never met John, didn't know who he was, anything about him. John grew up in Westwood, which seemed like forever away from where I grew up. And I remember how John always would say, you know, well, we're both these middle-class kids. And go, wait a minute, you know, your middle class is a lot different than my middle class, you know, you have 3 bathrooms and you have heating and air conditioning, you know. It's like, but yeah, John, I would buy materials from Don Post Studios, who made the Halloween masks and cool Universal masks and things. And I gave him one of my cards that said Rick Baker Monster Maker on it, you know, and John, being a mail boy at Fox, and then met John Chambers and had talked to John Chambers about this Schlock character.
John Chambers was the makeup artist who did Planet of the Apes.
Yes, and a lot of other amazing work. And yeah, thanks for clarifying that. I just assume everybody knows.
Of course they do.
Yeah. And John Chambers blew off John Landis and kind of didn't want to know about it. And
John was 21 at the time.
Yeah, I was 20. And Chambers, I think, recommended Don Post Studios, and John Landis went to Don Post Studios. John had no money, and I don't think they were really interested. And they went, hey, wait a minute, there's this kid that comes in and buys stuff and does some pretty good things. You should talk to him. So John drove out to my house with Jim O'Rourke, who was his partner, and that was the first time I met him. And you know John.
He's a force of nature.
He is, and you know. Again, I was still pretty quiet and shy, and this was my little territory, you know, my little bedroom with all my masks lined up, you know, and my collection of pictures and Famous Monsters all around and stuff. And John came in, this really hyperactive, really loud, foul-mouthed, guy who was flipping out about the stuff that I had done, and it was nice to have somebody actually appreciate that. But he scared me, He's loud. It was like, it's like, oh, and he's saying the F word in my house, and he's like touching my masks, So he scared me a little bit, But yeah, he was going to play the Schlock as well as direct the film, and I was kind of going, that's going to be that much harder, Couldn't you just get somebody else to play it, and or get somebody else to direct it, and which he wouldn't hear of, So he had to be made up, first thing in the morning, even if he didn't work as Schlock all day, and he directed in the Schlock makeup.
That had to have been the most bizarre experience, to have your director in a gorilla suit, basically.
Well, it was a missing link.
Oh, okay.
Well, the funny thing was, there was one day where he didn't wear the suit or makeup, and he came to work and started telling people what to do, and they went, "Who's this asshole?" It's like, where's that hairy guy? That's the director, So, we shot for 3 weeks in Agura. He was made up every day. It was during a heat wave. It was horribly hot. I did it for a deferred payment, I think of $1,000, which I still haven't seen.
Oh.
And I'm beginning to think I'm not going to see. I mean, how long ago was that? It's like, I was 20. I'm almost 60. So
well,
that 40 years. But yeah, it turned out to be a great, very long-lasting relationship. And it's been really terrific for my career. And so many of the movies that I've done is because of John.